And then let me grab one folder that I need. Okay, I think I'm good. All right. So again, good morning, good afternoon, welcome. Great to see everybody. This is going to be one of our final assignments. We actually have, as far as I know from timing, maybe 2 more assignments. Just because for the actual final that you're being assigned, you will get that a little bit ahead of time. So you have some time to chew on it. And we're doing a brand new character design for the final. So last term, we did Music Idol, which was pretty fun. But you're gonna have a new prompt and a new idea. So you'll see that shortly. So yeah, this is one of our last assignments, which is going to be Master Study. And specifically, I should put on here, it's a Master Study tutorial is the assignment. We talked about this last time, so we're gonna just quickly preview that. Your homework, which you've been assigned, that card is on your altitude right now, is you're actually going to make a master study of a piece of artwork. But we're going to take it a step further. I was actually, no joke, I was just making coffee and getting ready to like sit down for this assignment. And it's like, I'm actually really going to, I mean this in the way that I love you guys and I want to be hard on you. I was like, I'm actually really going to slam you guys with this homework assignment because it's basically a master study. It's kind of like graphic design, like you need to make a sheet like this with writing and everything. And we haven't talked about adding text, but I'd like to think that's pretty common in digital art. And also a presentation, which is that for the critique, even though I'll critique your master study, I'll take a look at it. A big part of your critique is that you're actually going to show this page and kind of explain it to us. So it's like you're almost going to be teaching us about your artist. But it seems appropriate because we're at the end of class. I just didn't give you a lot of warning that this would be kind of a big assignment, but I digress. That's okay. So again, the idea is that with the master study, I love that. That's very good attitude. If you don't mind me sharing, Jen says you can't smash what is already crushed. I like that. Yeah, you're already broken down. What's a little bit more kicking the dirt, right? Kicking you on the ground a little bit. So this is what we used to do. We used to do a master study where we were assigned an image and we did a master study painting of it, and that was that. So now what you're going to do is you're going to choose your own artist, and we have some stuff ready to go. So the idea is that we're going to go one by one with each of us, pick out your artist, talk about some characteristics of the artwork. So that's the part I said that's kind of like our lesson for today's. Each one of you will get some time that we'll talk about your artist and give you some tips on like the technique, like what should you do in this master study. So that's what we used to do. Now we're doing this tutorial part. A couple of things I want to stress quickly would be a master study is 1,001 quintillion%, whatever number you can think of, is absolutely not a tracing or paint over of a piece of artwork. So what that means is that a lot of times when we say master study, like we're trying to, do a study or an example of a piece of artwork, some students literally go into the artwork and make a layer and they just trace, the layer, color it, and that's the master study. Couldn't be further from the truth. You couldn't be more wrong to do that. And this is actually the insulation for that. I mean, this is what's going to prevent you from doing that, is that you have to do this part where you really explain like, what is it about this artist and their work that makes it look the way it does and show us how you did it. So again, I want to stress that the whole point of making a master study is we are expecting that whatever artwork you pick, whatever artist you're working from, will have some difference. It's actually a term that I would call natural deviation. So meaning whatever you're drawing is going to be, like probably 80% correct, but a little bit different. I think I said this last time that I consider myself a very tight kind of artist. I mean, like my skills are more technical, like the way I match things or the way that I draw. And so I'd like to think that my image is very tight, looks a lot like the original one, but couldn't be, again, further from the original in terms of deviation. Lots of stuff going on that's a little bit different. So yeah, don't trace over it, don't paint over it. We actually haven't had too big of an issue with that in this class, which is great, because talk about getting kicked while you're on the ground. People get nailed if they trace in this class and get caught. But we haven't had that problem. But yeah, just want to throw that out there. Don't trace or paint over it. Do an original drawing. And you'll be forced to do that because we want to see your steps. A little bit about master study, of course, is you're trying to find artists that you really like and that you want to emulate or even want to like emulate moves that they do. So I want to show some examples of like people that I really like. Like I've done this very assignment even in classes. You can actually see here it says homework because this is from one of the classes I took a while back. So these are like examples of artists I really like and stuff that I write about them, like trying to write like, oh, they're simple color palettes or their aggressive shape language. I love this work for like the painting and the color theory. This is one of my absolute favorite Disney animators who I've studied a lot for like hands and expressions and things like that. Here's one of my absolute favorite artists who I love, and I've always strived to like be as expressive as him. I think he's very amazing at that. And then here's a comic book artist, an Italian comic book artist that I love. And even in this class that I took, here's my homework assignment where I had to make a master study. The only difference was I had to do this traditionally. So this one's actually done in ink. So there's a master study. Here's one I did for class, right? Here's another one I did for class. The whole point of this is that we do master studies to be really honest with you, we do it to steal moves. We do it to steal and rip moves from other artists that we like. So whether that's like their use of color, the way they do line art, how they do shadows, things like that, so that we can fold those into our own work. So as an example, when we were doing this, which I think this was last term, Nolan, maybe you can remind me, isn't this the one that we did last term, I think? Do you remember that?
Yeah,
It was, okay, cool. Thank you for that. And I remember last term, I brought up like how this move was really interesting. I was like, oh, this artist does this interesting move on the nose where they kind of do like a little like structure to like show the bridge of it. These little highlights in the hair, you know, the gradient in the skin, things like that. So we do this to make moves, copy moves, use it in our own work. And then also it's a test, which I think I said that last time. So master studies are also my way and even our own way of actually testing you. Like, can you take something like this and reverse engineer it and try to match it as close as possible? So here's the original one on the left, here's mine on the right. So we're also just testing our skills and our abilities, which I highly recommend you do in general for yourself, meaning just every now and then sit down, try to copy some work, try to learn how someone works, and test your ability in digital art. Okay, but enough of that. So we'll talk about this in a second. This is the actual homework assignment, like what we really want to see. But let's get to the fun stuff, which is the brainstorming. So what we're going to do today, and we should have plenty of time to do this and even a little bit extra work, is we're going to first give ourselves like about 5 minutes, meaning like I want you to actually have a choice in your artwork. I do remember people like Nolan talked about wanting maybe some help with picking an artist. But I would really like you to pick your own artist as much as possible. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit to brainstorm on our own, just like 5 minutes or less, whatever we need. And you're going to type to me in the chat, of course, or just tell us on mic, whatever, which artist you're interested in and a piece of artwork that you want to do. We're going to put it on here. And then what we're going to do for everyone, again, kind of our lesson today is we'll help you out with 2 to 3 things about your artwork that you want to include. So meaning, oh, here's how they did the color, or hey, here's some tips on like how the line art works. And so we'll do some reverse engineering together to help you with your artwork. But again, I want you to actually have time to pick your own. That's what I talked about last time. I do have some stuff ready to go. I have like some classics, right? Some people that are classic, excellent people you could do for master study. I have some more like nuanced, not nuanced because this stuff's famous work, but just stuff like where we might not know the artist exactly, like their name, and I can help out with that. And then I even went ahead and pulled up some really cool artists. That's what I was doing at the beginning of class. Some stuff kind of like this. Here's one. Where again, if you're not sure what to do, or if you kind of need some inspiration, I have some stuff ready to go that I think would be really great for you to work on. That's a really cool one. I actually talked about this artist to Zaya, maybe in one of our meetings. I forget if I said out loud in class. I talked about this artist, beautiful artist in terms of like robots and tech. I love this guy. Here's another one. Here's actually one of my absolute favorite artists who I study a lot. He works for Studio Mirror, which is the company that did Legend of Korra. I think they might have done Vox Machina too. This is Kwang Kim. Love this guy. My entire like swatch palette over on my Photoshop is nothing but colors taken from Kwang Kim. And then here's one more person I thought would be cool, which we also talked about with Zaya. Let me grab it real quick. Oops, sorry, it's taking a second. Which is Ramon Nunez. So I got some stuff ready to go too to show off. Like, and while we're doing some brainstorm, I'll probably just show those out. Yeah, actually, in Genesis, was talking about like simple stuff. That's actually why this looks kind of complex. I could find a simpler version, but I have some people kind of prepared who I think are a little bit more simple. So yeah, we're going to brainstorm. We're going to take a second. We're going to check out some stuff that we're interested in. Again, I actually want you to drive this conversation as much as possible. If you need help, I'm happy to pick someone for you. And then we'll show your artwork on screen. We'll get some of those key characteristics to help you out with it. And that's, again, kind of how we're teaching some technique today. So first, let's just start with our little brainstorm time. So I'll put this right here. So it's about 13 on the hour. And so let's go ahead and we'll take to about 20. So it's about 5 or 7 minutes. I don't want you to feel too rushed, but again, like just pick some artists, pick some stuff that you're looking at. And what I want you to do is in the chat, I'll type it on here. You can attach a piece of artwork and an artist's name. If you're not sure about the piece of artwork you want to do, like, you know, the artist, but you don't have like a piece of artwork, we can help out with that. But in the next about 5 or 7 minutes, so we'll wrap this up at about 20 minutes on the hour, have something in the chat ready to go so that we can put it on screen, get started. And while you're taking those 5 or 7 minutes, I'll actually go through these artists I just showed and I'll say their names and stuff again. So you can do this again on your own time right now, the next 5 or 7 minutes. Find that piece of artwork that you're interested in. If you have no idea, oh, cool. I already see some stuff coming in. Oh, that's great. That's a super good one. Yeah, and actually, while you're getting these down, let me put them into the little page. And again, what's cool, I'm actually just as excited. I'm excited every day for art, right? But I'm super excited to see what you pick, and then how we can check out the work for technique. And this is cool again for me because this is all pretty live, like stuff that I've never seen before probably. So I'm excited to see what you all choose. So this is Genesis has this piece. Genesis, can you quickly tell me, is this, you put the handle on there, which is cool. Is that like Twitter, Instagram? Like, where could I find some more of this work? So here's Genesis.
You can find the artist on Twitter, but I found the picture from Pinterest.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let me try to find the Twitter real fast. I'm just kind of curious what this other work looks like. They already got one. Let's see. Oop, that's not it. Trying to find it. Of course, I didn't find it. Let's try that again. Okay, well, I like this picture, and I'm having a little bit of trouble finding on Twitter, but the picture is going to work for sure. Okay, so we'll cue this one up. This is Genesis piece. Very good. And the goal, of course, today would be that we walk out of here where everyone has their selection and everyone has their tips and we're all ready to go. And we would like you to commit to that. So I mean, like, try not to change it too much from what we're talking about today so that we're all on the same page, especially with giving you some tips. Zaya is, of course, expected to complete this entire image, all 7 or 8 drawings on here. I'm just kidding. That would be incredible though, but no, we're mainly going for verse that character. Here's Zaya's piece. I think there's some, this is a cool technique one because I think there's a little bit of chromatic aberration in this, which we can talk about. This is Zaya's piece. We'll talk about in a second. Very cool. Oops. Okay, so it's Zaya's. Oh, and then Genesis gave me some more info. Heart attack, yeah. Okay, thanks for the Twitter. I see it now. So thank you for that. LJ says, does it have to be, does that, when playing on the dog, does that have to be full body? You know, that's a great question. Because we're doing like truly a piece of artwork, LJ, like I even put in this, you know, Loish example that's not full body. It'd be nice if it's full body. I think we have a good core of people. I gotta be frank, like we started with a lot of classmates and we've narrowed it down to people who are in this class and working, right? So the best thing I could answer with that is like just as long as there's some good effort in it, like if it's not full body, I'm not totally bothered by that. Like even if, for instance, I know Zaya is going to do the character, but even if someone did like these 3 heads or something, that'd be a great master study, right? So it doesn't have to be full body, but definitely make sure there's some good stuff going on with it. Um, okay, so we got a few so far. So let's talk out loud a little bit about some of these other ones. In fact, Nolan, I know you wanted some help, so I wanted to help you with the. I had actually chose this artist. This is Phil Barassa, who I've talked about a few times in class, Nolan. And my main question for you, Nolan, is I thought this was cool because it's good anatomy, which you've been doing. There's good posing. It's got that kind of simple lighting, like the one shadow kind of lighting. So I feel like this kind of hit like your workflow and stuff, but what kind of a subject matter, I think would be a question. What kind of like artist or subject matter are you interested in right now?
I guess this certain type of thing that we're looking at right now, it does have good anatomy, which is something that I can work with.
Yeah,
And I mean, it's very broad with some of the characters, which I'm okay with. I can definitely do that.
yeah. You don't have to do this artwork from him. I actually just picked just this image because it was kind of splashy looking, but and then I don't want to bug you because if I recall, you like Marvel, and this guy actually does a lot of DC stuff. So as long as that doesn't bother you,
I don't really care. I like Marvel more, but I will like some DC stuff.
okay, cool. Because what I'm thinking about is God, like here's a great example. So yeah, that was just an example of the guy's work, but here's like a piece that I think could be kind of cool for you to do, where again you're
Hmm.
doing like some good anatomy. Um, even like a body and a head could be cool. I'm trying to find one more. There's some really good. Let me find more because he does some really cool Superman stuff. Give me a second. Um, yeah, I wish I could find. This is pretty close because this is what I like. Like he's got this really cool style that's realistic, but it's got a lot of personality to it. Like I love that Superman, great head. The pose is cool. It's actually pretty neutral looking, but just like good muscle stuff going on. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I really like that one. Let me find one more. Um, I'm very close. Let's see. Here's one. Okay. I would say the image on the screen is cool. Here's one more really good one, which I do like the quality of this one. I think it looks a little bit better. And as LJ asked, I don't mind that this isn't full body. There's actually plenty of work to do here with this
Okay.
one. So yeah, what do you think? Is this a good one, Nolan? You feel solid about this?
Yeah, I might change my mind for the artwork, but I'm definitely good with the artist. Can you tell
Okay,
me his
cool.
name again?
Yeah, I'll write it down here. So his name is, and that's a good point. His name is Phil Burasa. We'll tag you in this one for now. This is actually one where you could almost pick different art and it still have the same kind of like style and workflow. So we can talk about that. Okay, so that's Nolan's we'll talk about. Um, exactly. Actually, this goes back to I think Genesis, where I'm dying to draw these very very cute pictures, right? Can't choose it. Okay, let me look this up, LJ. So let me look up this artist. So we're almost ready to dive into these. We got some good stuff going on. Let me just put this in. Okay, I think I found it. Give me one second. Oh, do you have like a link? Because I looked up that name and I got just like a chick. Let me see. Oh, okay, I think I found it now. Okay. Here I'll show it on the screen actually real fast. Is this it? Yeah, I think I found it. Okay, cool. Yeah, these are really cool. Wow, very cool. I love the handling of the paint and of course the exaggerated eyes. In terms of picking one, yeah, I like this one really gets me. I like that one a lot. This one's actually really nice. It's got good skin. There's like a little bit of tilt and everything in the shoulder, which is great. So yeah, my vote would be for this one. I'll put it on the screen. We'll go back over here. Okay, so we have Nolan. we have LJ. And this is, one more time, her name, Paxton. Okay. Okay, so we have LJ's. Rain is not here today. She messaged me ahead of time, so I will get to hers in a bit. Okay, so I think we're just missing Mia and Ryan. I think are the only ones who are missing. Because let me double check real fast. So I have Zaya's. I have Nolan. LJ's looking weird. Just yeah. So Mia and Ryan. Let's get your artist and image as quickly as possible. I'll go ahead and I'll start on these other ones in the meantime. Okay. So let's start with Zaya, which I think I still have this picture because it was really cool. I think I still have it open because I want to see the high res. Here we go. Okay, so Zaya has chosen this pretty sick, truly picture. And this reminds me a lot of like some people we talked about in class. I've even talked about Hobchi in class. Typically I'd call this like game design. Like you could do this for film, but this is very much like game concept art. So that's what one of the first things we want to highlight, game concept. So that means it's very like silhouette and pose based. Okay, so what we want to do together on your artwork is of course give you some tips on what's going on with the techniques. We are making the grand assumption that Zaya is working with this character herself. So what we'll do for your artwork, this is for everyone. Oh, thank you, Mia. I'll grab that in just a second. Oh, yeah, I like this a lot. Oh, very good. Okay. Yeah, I'll show that in a second, Mia. So yeah, what we're going to do for your everyone's artwork technique wise, because a lot of these are drawing based, like we do have a painting one from LJ, but what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to like break down the line work, the color work, which you can literally like do a lot of color picking from these, but we'd love to at least like talk for a second, like what is actually happening with the color. But yeah, line, color, any kind of like rendering. And then actually a really important one is like the finish, which is a very rare thing we've talked about in this class. Finish or like post-production, which means like when you're done with the painting, are they doing any like special effects? For instance, something called chromatic aberration. I can show you very quickly. This piece, I don't think has it. It looks close, but chromatic aberration is where, give me 1 second. I just made a tutorial for a company about this. Chromatic aberration is where you see a piece of artwork and it kind of has this like buzz or like vibration to it. And for a lot of stuff that looks kind of like anime and even like older anime, it has this like little fuzz that's a little bit colorful looking. And so a lot of pieces you will see have chromatic aberration. This one doesn't look like it exactly, but it came close. It almost looked like it did. Okay. So Zach, let's actually quiz you for a second. With these kind of topics, like the line work, the color, the rendering, like what are some of the descriptions you would use? Like, how would you describe some of the stuff going on in this piece?
So line based, I don't think it's actually very line art based. It's very sketchy, and the artist did not like go really over the cleaned up sketch. Obviously, I think he did a very messy sketch, then did another more clean sketch, but I don't think he actually went through a line art step, because you can still see some pieces are erased not very neatly. Like for example, in the hair, you can just see some kind of strands going out, and it doesn't feel as if there is a strong line art, because based on also kind of the brush that he used, which seems kind of like a pencil, like drafting pencil-ish texture, it also seems as if he maybe lowered the opacity, as I don't know, it's not very strong. So yeah, it's not a very kind of line art driven piece.
Yeah, pencil opacity, I like that. One of my assumptions in this piece is that this brush that they're drawing with does look kind of like a calligraphy brush. So meaning it kind of has like a flat and a pointy side. So I don't know if the artist does a lot of adjustment between that kind of line versus these like kind of pancake lines that are a little bit flatter. So yeah, there's definitely some kind of calligraphy going on, which to me looks something like this, where the line can be sharp and then it can be kind of wide like that.
Yeah.
And so as a specific idea, let me see if I can pull it. Because I know you're going to have some fun with like matching. It's kind of like an oval shape, I would imagine, is like how that brush
Okay.
looks. If you have like an oval or a round, and you're totally right, there's not like pin ink going on here. There's like tighter moments, like especially in the eye and the mouth, but not a lot of like inking, like traditional inking. So yeah, I'd go for like an oval or a round kind of brush. Very good job with like the opacity, kind of like low opacity. And then you're right, if we describe this line art, this whole piece, it's just like it's a clean drawing, but it's not like inked. It's just cleaned up. Which you're right, also might mean that the artist like sketched some stuff and then came in and like cleaned some of the line work, but left some of those imperfections there, which is great. We do also notice that just as an entire image, you probably see this, it's mostly for your classmates. Very like dull, blurry, wide stuff that's outside focal point. And then obviously like in the focal point, extremely tight, dark, tightened up kind of work. So we do see some of this, it's what I call pancake, like these little pancake lines like that on the outside. But clearly it gets really tight in here, which is cool. Just for fun, of course, we would call this like anime kind of Eastern style, especially with the eyes and the way the mouth is drawn. So it's kind of like an Eastern style work. What are some things you'd say about the color? Like, how would you describe the color?
So the colors are really like on the duller side, I'd say. They're not exactly warm. The skin isn't fully warm. It also looks warmer because of the colors around, but overall it's very dull, except for those like pops of purple, which are a lot more saturated purples. And I mean, obviously it's like kind of gives lore to the character. So yeah, it's like a piece that's mainly kind of in the purples and greens, bluish tones. And then there's the, kind of the orange skin.
Yeah, very, very good. Yeah, so all the color on here, the numbers I'm writing are the saturation up to 100, and all the saturation is extremely low except for the chemical or whatever is like an 82. So very good. Yeah, it's very dull color. Flirting a little bit with the complementary color scheme because we have this tan that when we look at the parent color is yellow, right? There's the parent color up there. And then of course she has this like lilac purple hair as well as the lilac, the purple chemical. And so there's the chemical, or excuse me, so sorry, that's the hair color. So yeah, here's where her tan is. It's like right there. Here's the hair color. So definitely some complementary color. That's me playing that tiny violin every time, which is like, these people don't overthink this stuff, right? They just primarily use complementary color. So yeah, good job with describing the saturation, complementary colors. That's a great lesson we learned in general from it. Oh, very nice. Okay, so Ryan and Mia have some stuff in the chat, so I'll get those in a second. Okay, last thing real fast, rendering. What kind of rendering are we seeing here?
It's very simple. He plays a lot with sharp edges and soft edges, though mostly it is sharp edges. And where he doesn't color on top of the line art. I mean, sketch.
Yeah, it looks like he turns, we'll say on here, like the artist sort of turns soft form mainly on skin, it looks like most of the skin, like the face, the chest, even like the arms are actually really sharp. Like we don't see a lot of stuff here. It's like very soft. So we'd almost argue that most of the soft rendering or turn is like around here in the focal point. And then these other areas, there's almost no soft edges. There's like a cut of some edges here, but yeah, nothing really. The turn soft form on skin focal point. So yeah, we actually would call this a largely like flat piece of artwork. It's like flats, flat shadow, flat color. Last thing, do you notice any kind of like finish? Like, and this is a new question. I'm only going to ask maybe a couple
Mhm.
people because it is hard, but do you see any like post-production? Is there like noise or
Yeah,
grain? Do you see that like chromatic
there's
stuff?
definitely some noise,
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit of
like when you
noise.
zoom in a lot.
Yeah, you can definitely see some noise on there. So definitely some noise. Quickly, do you understand how to do noise? Are you familiar with how that works?
I mean, like, unfortunately, I haven't found out Clip Studio Paint, but I made a brush that imitates how noise is. But if there's an actual like effect on Clip Studio Paint, it would be great.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head if Clip has it, but I will show you quickly. Let me find actually here's, let's see, this would probably work. Here's Mia's artwork, or one of the ones that Mia was looking at. So I'm actually going to quickly this here for a second for Mia. This does not look like it has noise on it, so I'll put some real quick just to show as an example. So here's Mia. Oop. Okay. So in Photoshop, noise. Oh, there we go. So sorry. Noise usually looks like this. You take the artwork and you add a flat gray over the entire image. So you make a new layer and make gray. Clip might have this, I don't know, but in Photoshop, you actually do the flat gray, you put add noise, and you add this extremely noisy layer. So add noise in Photoshop. And all you want to do on here is make sure it's monochromatic, because if you have this where it looks like this is aging me because you guys probably don't see this as much anymore, like TV static used to look like this where it has like a lot of color. So you make sure it's like totally black and white. So it's a totally black and white, gray, heavily noise layer. Then you usually change it to soft light. And from there, you just dial it down. You dial it down to like even 20% or something. And that's usually how you get noise in artwork. And clip, I don't know. I'll try to write a post-it to look at my clip real fast and see how that would work. But that's usually what you do, is you do this like heavily gray one. But yeah, good job, of course, for noticing that there's some noise on there. Okay. I think that's pretty solid overall. Of course, if we have more questions, we'll talk on teams, but otherwise I think you're looking pretty good for this one. And as we send you off to the horse race about this, good luck. Good luck with this piece. It's very challenging. I'm very excited to see it. I just put Mia's. I'm going to put Mia and Ryan so we have those queued up. Oh, cool. Perlin noise. Interesting. This person's name is Big Squid Man Media. I like that. Put that on here. This is Mia's. Oop. So we'll look at that in a second. And then lastly, let's look at Ryan's quickly. Really nice one, by the way. I really like this one, Ryan selected. Speaking of noise, this definitely has some noise. So now speaking of noise in general, I know noise on Photoshop. Clip Studio, it sounds like something called Perlin noise that Zaya just typed. On Procreate, I do not know how noise works on Procreate, but I'll try to make a note of that. And again, this is actually for our class having some advanced stuff. One of those things that's just a topic we don't usually get into, which is these kind of really, they're called like post-production moves. I mean, like, how's the thing kind of finished? What are some effects at the end? Okay, so here is Ryan. Okay, and I'll export all of these and put them in the Teams chat at the end. So let's look at Genesis real quick. Let's check out Genesis. So Genesis has what looks like Nacho, right? This is a great piece. Fantastic piece. Very excited to see this already. Oh, thank you, Zaya, for typing it in chat. And I think there's definitely some stuff we can pick up on here. So Genesis, just so you can participate a little bit, why don't you tell us a little bit about like, what do you see in like the line, the color, and then we'll call it the rendering, which that just means like, do you see any like painting or blending, anything like that? What are some things that you see in this artwork, Genesis?
Well, I think the lines are soft in the sense that they're kind of round, but they also are very defined. Like you
Yeah.
can see where the artist drew the lines for the hair and for the clothes.
Yeah. So this is actually what I call
And
like drawing centric, meaning like there are like a lot of lines going through the hair. So it's like a lot of drawing with some color underneath for sure.
yeah.
What about like the
And
color?
the color palette is very soft and light. Um, and also her eyes are like very like defining. Like for her eyes, like the eyelashes, that line is noticeably thicker than the other lines.
Yeah, for sure. So color, yeah, color is very soft. It's interesting how the skin and the hair are like not too different, which is very like literally appealing in a way. I mean, like, it's just this very soft idea. We once again um we have something very close to like a complementary color look, because this looks green. It's actually a form of yellow, but it is a nice riff on like this pink. Like it's almost pink and green. It looks green, but if you click on it, it's like a yellow form. It's just really desaturated. But yeah, a little bit of this like pink green stuff going on. Obviously, very soft color. We do notice that the only place that really has like color variation, like where there's some variant, is the hair. That's like one of the only places there's like some different color kind of like streaking through. This was pretty simple. You know, there's like some nice blush put in here, a little bit of shadow, obviously some texture on the clothing. So soft variation in hair, that's the only thing we see for the color. And everything on here is extremely bright. So a lot of these colors, if you were to look at them on the color wheel, like her skin, her hair and everything, it's all kind of hanging out right here, like there's some white. So a lot of like bright color for sure. So rendering, like any kind of painting, it looks like the main painting is in the eyes. Obviously, like really bring attention to those. So that's where you get some actual painting work. And then just a little bit, you know, a little bit in the hair. And I don't expect too much of this. In fact, Genesis, I'm really excited for you to try this one. But just for the discussion we have with Zaya's, it is interesting to note that there is some blur put on this image. So there's like blur down here post-production wise. So don't worry about that. We'll call it post or final. But just so we can show it for everyone in class, it is cool to see that we have a little bit of blur. So what that means, of course, is the artist is drawing attention. There's also blur up here. So they kind of blurred the top and bottom to like bring your focus right here in the center. Last quick thing, of course, is it is important that the lines are colored, so they're not black. That's a super important part of the style of this. Very cool. I'm very excited to see this one. I'm already jealous with my timing, where I wish I could do little master studies of each one of these images, because they're very good choices. Okay, let's go to LJ. So LJ, this is cool because you're going to be one of the standouts who's kind of doing like a painting, because even though this is also still drawing centric, it's got a lot of like painting and rendering. So let's just jump into some of the stuff with the actual drawing. We won't call it like lines, we're like drawing. What are some color choices we see? And yeah, what's some like painting decisions? So LJ, if you want to type a little bit, why don't you just type quickly some things you think about this artwork? Like, what do you notice about how it's drawn? What do you notice about like the color that's being used? Anything you notice about like the painting or rendering? And while LJ's, oh, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
I can, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so something I noticed about the drawing is that there's definitely not a lot of line art or line work, and it's very rendered. So I'm probably assuming that the artist first went with the sketch and started with the color underneath that sketch, and then probably merged all the layers together, and then went in and added the slight like shading, and there's not much line art, but the darker colors to imply like the line art.
Yeah, I love that. That's a perfect, really a perfect assessment, which I totally agree with, where over the time of the piece, they probably just merged everything and then just started to kind of like paint and render a little bit. What do you notice about the colors, especially like the hair? Like what kind of color are you seeing on this?
I'm noticing the colors are they're kind of saturated and orangey, so I think there might be like a orange overlay on top. That
Yeah,
was
very
like
good. Hmm.
the opacity was turned down just to kind of merge all the colors together.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna put that under finish because you're right. There is a very like warm ending to this. Like it all kind of feels warm, like a warm finish. And so one of our first thoughts is they might have used a little bit of like overlay with orange, turned really low, kind of like 20% or something. So yeah, that's a good observation. One quick thing I'll show you, because it actually caught me off guard a little bit when I was color picking, is the character's skin is kind of like typical saturation, like kind of mid to lower. And then what's funny is the background, the hair, the black dress, and it's almost like a stole is the term, that like fur kind of thing. They're all very low saturation, which caught me off guard. I thought they were a little bit richer looking. But yeah, if you test like her hair, if you test like her dress, of course it's black, but it's like a really neutral black. Here it is right here. And then even if you do like the little fur, again, it's kind of like a stole is the term. They're all very low saturation. They're all really pushed. So the way that we would describe that would be, it's very realistic because real life is very desaturated. So we could say that that's part of what's cool is the drawing is really stylized, but the color and everything is highly realistic, like the very realistic treatment of the color. Last question, LJ, is what do you think of like the painting or the rendering? Like how's the kind of like brushwork look in this?
Well, the shadows are, I think, sharper, and the highlights are a bit softer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's a lot of detail put into the eyes, so it's like I think it's called the focal point.
Mm-hmm.
So like there's more attention to the face compared to the rest of the body, so your attention goes to there.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, especially good job using the term focal point. That was really cool what you said, which I agree with, where the shadows are kind of a little bit sharper, like in edge, and then like the highlighting is very soft. Like we don't really see big, strong highlighting. And then our visual for how that focal point looks, especially for like rendering, it looks something like this. We just always imagine that whatever the image is, the artist can render and like pay attention to things, but this is literally what the artist is doing, right? It's like they're just always putting most attention where we want the audience to look. So that's why the fur is cool, but it's actually very loose. Then you get to the eyes and they're extremely tight. Those are great observations, LJ. Thank you so much. Really good stuff. Definitely a good piece. And I'm excited that I knew we'd have a lot of drawing centric work, but it's cool that we'll get at least one painting for someone to do and work on here. Okay. We got a few more. Let's go to Nolan. So yeah, Nolan, we're doing this Barasa piece, or you want to pick another piece potentially, but this is our artist. So same thing. What are some characteristics of like the line, the color? Is there any kind of rendering, like any sort of painting in these? And then even a little bit, because you're getting more advanced, like what do you think about the finish of it? So let's start with line. Like what do you notice about the line work?
Where there's like muscles and stuff, it's usually like very spiky and blocky in some of the areas.
Mm-hmm.
Like very like hexagony a bit. Like on the bicep and elbow, they do look more spiky than usual.
Yeah.
And then and even for like the bicep or something, or the thigh, it's very pointy, like a square or something.
Yeah, very pointy, very angular. One thing that makes this artwork challenging and cool looking all at the same time is, of course, the line art is extremely thin. Like we kind of know a little bit about our brush size. This stuff's like 1 to 3 pixel brush size. Like me, it literally is like that. So that's another thing that is interesting is we have very thin line art. But yeah, very pointy and angular. This is something I talk about with Zaya in particular, where the artist just doesn't do this. This is actually very weak. It's a tricky thing to deal with in art. These are very weak lines. This has an actual apex, like a point. And so that's like stronger and more decisive. So yeah, very pointy, very good. Angular. Yeah, very you were saying like hexagony, which I like, and another word we'd use is it's very planar, like that is the word, which just means it has like very distinct sides, like very distinct turns in it. What do you think about the color? It of course fits the character, like it's Superman's palette, but how would you feel about the color? Like, is there a certain temperature do you think the color has?
It looks very dusk.
Mm-hmm. Good term. Yeah, good vocabulary. Kind of like a dusk. And this goes into a little bit of the finish where you could color the character however you want, and then it definitely has some kind of like overlay. Dusk is a really nice word because that's kind of that little bit like yellowy orange kind of overlaid. You know, you could do things like that. You could do just a little bit more yellow, but it's kind of leaning more warm. But yeah, it definitely has this like kind of nostalgia look. Here's like we're gonna force that look a little bit more. But here's like how it would look is you could do like soft light and turn it down. And we can see how we're even like increasing that duskiness a little bit. So yeah, definitely there's a finish on there, which I'd be curious for you to try. You know, I'm a little bit soft on the finish stuff for everyone just because we haven't talked a lot about that in class. But I would be curious if you all want to play with that for depending on what the artwork is. So this one's like an overlay on about 50%. And as an example, it's using this color. So yeah, it's classic Superman colors, but there's definitely something kind of shifting the temperature, which is cool. What do you think of the, oh, and one more quick question would be, I do notice if you would agree that the blue, maybe because of that duskiness, is like kind of chill. It's more desaturated, but that red's pretty bright, right? That red's really saturated. So we of course like that he's a dusk kind of temperature. And then yeah, we like that if Superman is red and blue, that the artist didn't just make both those like neon and saturated. It's like one's more saturated, the other one's more desaturated.
Yeah.
Last question is like, do you see any kind of like painting in this? Any kind of like, there's like shadow, of course, but do you see any like soft edges, any kind of like painting or blending? Like, what do you think about that?
I don't see any soft edges, but I could definitely see some painting with the shading.
Yeah, it's very sharp. There's to me, there's like basically no like quote unquote rendering. Like there's no like turning of an edge or kind of like softening something like this. So it's pretty sharp. Which so I'll put on here.
Well, then
Good for-
again, this design is for like an animated series, so of course
Exactly.
it has.
Exactly. Yeah, it's extremely animation centric design. So there's very little reason to do any kind of rendering or shading. And so that's something we would say. Of course, we'd say this is highly, you know, angular in line work. It's highly angular in lighting. And usually I call stuff like this in my own mind, I call it like a 1-2 decision. So meaning like there's, you know, a color, and then there's just one like type of shadow, and that's it. There's nothing like kind of in between or kind of like messing around too much. So yeah, check out some other artwork. I think overall this would be the keys, like find a good body with like good lighting and stuff that you can mess with. But I think this is a good one for you. It kind of trends towards some stuff you've been doing, especially in the character class.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and do our last couple real quick. We have Ryan's. This one's very cool. A lot of good finish on this one. Definitely some chromatic aberration. This is zoom. It's extremely hard for you all to see this probably. But if you look, I know this is really fuzzy. It's not going to cut it with zoom. But you can see there's like some vibration. There's like a little bit of like red and green vibrating. So the artist definitely did some chromatic aberration, which I'm not too concerned with. That's some crazy stuff, but we'll talk about that. Maybe even during the critique, I could show you that step. So Ryan, let's hear real fast a little bit about what kind of line work do you see? What do you notice about the color? And then do you notice any kind of like rendering? Which when we say that, we keep saying like, is there like blending or painting in this? So we'll give Ryan a minute to type in the chat. So while Ryan's typing, I'll throw a couple things out here. So a lot of this work that is Eastern, so I mean like that's kind of anime centric or based in anime and manga. Very thin line art, very thin. You know, again, that 1 to 3 pixel idea. So stuff that looks like this. So yeah, very, very thin line art. And then in general, we do call this like a drawing centric piece. I mean, like it's a really tight or like well done drawing. And if you think about the color beneath it, it's pretty simple. It's like just color, and it's actually these flat shapes, a lot like Nolan's, where there's not much blending. So very drawing centric. The line work, the line art or the drawing itself is very important. The color, our color vocabulary we love to use is monochromatic. It's a very monochromatic piece. We could definitely argue that just like Nolan's piece, that this might have something at the end, like an overlay layer with some kind of like cool, this cool like muddy green, kind of like a muddy green, muddy yellow color, to really like wrap it all up. So very monochromatic color. You know, the skin itself is this color, which is like a yellow. So that's why we say monochromatic. It's like everything is like tinted or tinged by that color. Nothing else really going on. For rendering, again, very simple shadow, like a simple 1-layer kind of shadow. And the only rendering it looks like is there is some dodge on the, we'll call them butterfly. They could be like moth though. I'm gonna go with like kind of moth. They could almost be like butterfly, but probably more of moth. But that's the only thing that has like any texture. Even the character's eyes don't really have like much glow. There's like a little bit in there. One more thing that we'll throw out here is that the line art is not black. The line art's definitely colored lines. They look a little bit like brown. So even though there's some deep color in the background, even the background that you would think is quote unquote black is this color right here. It's like a deep brown, like in that muddiness. So still a lot of color going on, even though it's very monochromatic, and looks very decisively black. So we'll put that into themes later. Last but certainly not least, we'll make sure we get this in real fast. Here's Mia's piece. Mia, could you describe a little bit of that line, that color, and then some of that rendering of this piece? Is there any kind of like painting or anything going on?
Can you hear me?
I can, yeah, you're a little bit quiet, but I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I really like this person's use of color, or like lack thereof, I guess.
Yeah.
Like how they can, it kind of seems like they just like did they understand color enough to do like the bare minimum and make it look good, which I like aspire to do, I guess.
Yeah.
For lines, I really like their I guess you could say it's like hatching, just like, yeah, basically like the control they have with that like pencil brush, where it looks very like neat and clean, but also textured.
Yeah.
And I don't know about like as for rendering, there's again not a lot because they, yeah.
Yeah, totally my vote too. Yeah, no rendering,
Mhm.
just super flat. It's very,
Yeah.
as we keep saying, it's like very drawing centric. And then
Yeah.
a good word for the line art is the line art's kind of a noisy, like the lines
Yes.
themselves are kind of noisy. So when you look in here, you kind of see these like electric moments. And this is very important. The line work's actually really broken too. We see some
Mhm.
moments where it kind of breaks or skips. So that's that sweet spot that's so odd in drawing, where like an amateur would do these things accidentally, but a professional or someone who's like doing really well does them intentionally for
Mhm.
character, right? So yeah, I would
Mhm.
say noisy lines, you know, broken. We like that a lot. And then yeah, it's this cool like accent color, which one of my favorite things is this is kind of like an orangey accent color. And my gut feeling, my emotional feeling is this is kind of like greenish almost. It's like this weird, like sickly yellow. But it is like a yellow. It's leaning more towards green. It's like a more of a limey yellow if you looked at it.
Mhm.
But one thing I think is cool is normally I'd be like, oh, this is a little bit complementary. It's kind of like a green, it's kind of like an orangey red. So it kind of leans into that realm, but it's actually two colors that are closer together looking than we think. So they look like this. So we actually would call it kind of analogous. It's like, that's why it kind of fits, is because the colors are just right next to one another. But they made the saturation so low on that one color that it kind of like turns more neutral, which makes it behave differently, which I think is really cool. Some colored wine art in places that don't matter, quote unquote, like the background has colored wines, but the characters are all black. Their interiors, though, are colored, which is interesting. So there's some cool moves going on, subtle stuff, right? Some subtle, like interesting style stuff. So yeah, I look forward to seeing this one. That'll be a good one. Okay, great job. Really nice stuff. Don't forget the tutorial aspect of all this. Speaking of, I will very quickly, because I know we got to run out of here. Oops, I lost it. Here we go. So yeah, very quickly, here's your homework card. You've been assigned the homework. I did my best to write as much stuff on there. And the only thing I didn't show on screen, but you'll see on the homework card, is here's the very explicit explanation about how your page could look. Your page can definitely look different. You can add more steps. I did put on there maybe no more than 8, because to be frank, like we don't need to see sometimes like 8 steps for something. So minimum 4 up to like 8. Make sure you show the original artwork like you did today on screen, or you showed me. Make sure your final one, of course, is on there. I'm very excited to see how these turn out. And don't forget that you will be presenting them. So you'll be actually showing them and talking about them in class. Let me know if you have any questions. Have a great weekend. I'll see you guys next week. See ya.